On this episode of Outside of the Box, Christine talks to the Hunter brothers of the Havoc Rundown about their development of Fantasy Robot League.
Fantasy sports has always interested me. We were talking about it and we were like, is there a league out there? Does like anyone have a league for NHL or BattleBots or any of these? And not really. No, there wasn't one out there. So I kind of dug into it and I started putting together all the rules, and slowly I think it's like a 8-page rule doc thing came out of it. I wanted to do a fantasy sport and we went, hey, there's no fantasy for robot combat. Let's make one.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outside of the Box. And I get really excited about new things, and I've been doing this for a while. So unfortunately for me, it's not often that something new and exciting comes along, but Fantasy Robot League, that's new and exciting. And so I'm really happy to have the Hunter brothers on with me from the Havoc Rundown to talk about the Fantasy Robot League. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, for sure. So funny story, something that is little known about me by people that know me today is that at one point in time, I was very, very competitive in fantasy football. I was obsessed with it and would win my leagues and take great pleasure in all of these guys in the leagues that would be like, what does she know about football? And then I'd win. And then I'd be like, apparently I know a lot about football. The Robot League, it just seems like a logical thing to do. Like, they have leagues for every other fantasy sport. Why not robots? I'm curious. I mean, is that kind of the conclusion that you both came to, is like, hey, this seems like a thing that we should have?
Yeah. So it kind of came out of, so I love not football, but I love baseball. And I've always wanted to do some kind of fantasy baseball. I've never really found a league to get into that, but fantasy sports has always interested me. And then I believe that we were talking about it and we were like, is there a league out there? Does anyone have a league for NHL or BattleBots or any of these? And not really. No, there wasn't one out there. So I kind of dug into it and I started putting together all the rules. I bounced a bunch of stuff off Ryan, said, hey, does this work? Does this work? And slowly I think it's like a 8-page rule doc thing came out of it. So yeah, that's kind of how it developed, is figuring out what we thought would work, what we thought didn't work, and just developing it as it went. And now, we have the rules that we do, and we have the league built in the way. We don't know if it's going to work. We haven't actually put it into practice yet. So, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, that's kind of how it developed. Is I wanted to do a fantasy sport and we went, hey, there's no fantasy for robot combat. Let's make one. So
this is a lot of Justin's brainchild. He's been kind of bouncing ideas off of me, but this is really Justin's been doing a lot of work to get this done. I'm more of thinking of this as part of a competitor too, and bouncing off how it can work and stuff like that. We were just talking today about a completely separate way of doing the rules too that we were talking about.
The draft. Yeah. So Mark, I'm gonna butcher his last name, but Mark Rene came up to me because he's part of the league, and we kind of have an issue at the moment, not an issue, but something we're working through with the fact that there's less 12s and 30s for February than we thought there was going to be, and there's also more competitors. So let me just say that really quick. When we were first doing this, we thought it was going to be Ryan, Tony, Ashley, Thomas, and maybe 2 other people. We thought there was going to be 6 people. We had to cap it out at 25. So there's 25 members of this league now, way larger than I thought it was going to be. So there's only currently 15 12s and 10 30s, and trying to spread that out between 25 people and figuring out how many of each bot people can take into their pool and all these other things that goes into figuring out the drafts. Mark Rene mentioned that it would be interesting to have a currency thing and have a certain amount of points you can use to draft certain bots. And so we were kind of going through that. Mark and I were bouncing things off of each other and figuring out how many points each bot would be worth. And not for our February draft, but just things looking forward and figuring out how to fix it, because that's one of the things with something brand new like this is figuring out what works for robot combat, what doesn't work for robot combat, what we're going to have to tweak, and what's going to work in the long run, because we're going to see our first draft is on the 19th, so we're going to see how that goes and how picking bots is going to be, and kind of have to tweak it from there and tweak it throughout the year to make a final product that we can feel comfortable, putting a final stamp on. So
yeah, I can only imagine how challenging that would be, because I mean, I've been a part of so many fantasy leagues, and I feel like creating a fantasy league in a lot of ways, like aside from like financial cost, because obviously in a real robot league there's that, but like it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to figure out every aspect of how it's going to work and make sure that it will work the way that you intend, and without even having like a template to go off or from like a prior thing, you're kind of creating this whole thing on your own. I would think that would be the biggest part of the challenge, because I mean, obviously, like, you want it to be successful and you want people to have fun.
right. Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things that we had to figure out was kind of the points thing and how the points were going to be applied. I've gone through at least 3 or 4 different versions of how the points would be scored. When I first started, I had this huge list of different things that could score points. And then as we were breaking it down, we realized that like some of the things are going to be really hard to keep track of, because you're going to have to be able to go back and verify the points and make sure that if there's some kind of not dispute or some kind of question, that you're able to go back and look at it. So right now, all of the points are based off of things that we can look in True Finals for. So we can always verify, like, I can pull up the actual points, but it's like a tap out has certain points, and judge's decision win has certain points, and judge's decision loss has certain points. And one of the biggest helps on that was actually Gil. So I sent the rules as they were to Gil, and he got because anybody that knows Gil knows that he's a huge stat person. So he took a look at it and he went, "Oh my God, this is awesome. Let me take a look at it and break it down." So he took the points as I had them, and he helped me tweak a bunch of stuff to try and make it more fair, because he pointed out things like the 12s and the 30s were technically weighed more than others because I had them on the same points as the 3s, but the 3s end up fighting a lot more, so they would technically be worth more points. So he helped me put the points in a more balanced way so that 12s and 30s are technically worth more points, but in the long run, because they fight less times, they're worth the same amount over the entire event, if that makes sense. So Gil was a huge help with that and looking at the stats. He's fed me a bunch of stat pages that I could look at, and I have some things on like the seeds and what the seeds are worth and how much weight goes into what a bot is seeded from last year. And yeah, it's been a learning curve, and Gil's been a huge help with that part. So
Yeah. Now I'm curious because, again, having a fantasy background, but like there is an aspect to this league that I think is different than most sports leagues that I've been a part of for fantasy games. And that is that you can only use bots so many times per year. So it's not like you can have a bot on your roster and then like you can just keep it for as many events as you want to keep it for. It doesn't work that way. So I guess talk a little bit about the strategy aspect of the league, because I think there's a little bit more strategy than I'm used to and what I've done before.
Yeah,
I think a factor is also this year, especially with how we are doing, how people are getting into NHRL, the way it's more of like, so that you don't have as many people being able to fight every single time. So I think that's also going to be a factor within us, within people picking robots, and everything. But Justin, once again, has more detail about that.
Yeah, so when I was looking at the drafting and how the bots would work per event, I wanted to feel like a regular fantasy league where you have a team and you don't feel like you're just like recycling players every single time. But also not being able to pick like one bot that you knew was going to compete like 5 times and win 5 times. So the way that we balance that out was let's say for February, when you draft 2 beetles, 1 hobby weight, and 1 featherweight per event. And those bots, once you draft them, go into your team. And that team goes over the entire year. But when a bot is in your team, it can only be used twice throughout the entire year. And that kind of controls not being able to pick, let's say, emulsifier. An emulsifier competes 4 times for some reason, and you can only use it twice because it's going to rack up a lot of points. It kind of goes into that. And there's trading. So you can trade whatever bots are in your team with other. I've gone back and forth between calling competitors players, or I'm not sure what to call members, whatever we call them. But you can trade with other people within the league. And when you trade with them, the amount that bot is used is not reset. So if the bot has already been used once, you're trading a bot that's already been used. So it can only be used one more time, except for the championships. That is the reset. So when championships happen, the amount a bot is used has been reset. And everyone goes into the championships with at least 2 beta weights and 1 hobby weight and 1 featherweight. And there's a whole thing at the end with championships that we had to figure out, where there's another draft for anyone that doesn't have enough bots to go into it, using bots that are in the championships that aren't being used. There's a lot of nuances that I had to fit into this to, like you, Christine, like you said, to combat different circumstances that would come up. So.
Yeah, that would be a challenge because, like I said, robot fighting isn't quite the same as team sports, so you have to account for other factors that you can't really duplicate from like an existing model. So honestly, it's pretty impressive that you've been able to put it together and make something that's actually going to work, because that's a Herculean task, at least in my mind. Now, for folks that are like following the league, it is my understanding that at the end there is a trophy for whoever wins everything.
So, if anyone has ever listened to an episode, they know that one of our Pit Desk members, Tony, is a world-class 3D artist and 3D printer. He sells all of his work. He has artworks that have gone up in like competitions. He is a master when it comes to 3D printing. He is going to make us a awesome trophy at the end that says like 2024 Havoc Rundown Fantasy League winner or something like that. But he's going to make this awesome trophy that he's going to print out that's going to go to the winner at the end. And I'm also trying to figure out some things with Gil, like least used bot or some other like smaller things that leagues have sometimes that are award people for different weird little statistical trophies, I guess is the best way to say. If you understand what I'm saying, like like I said, like least used bot or most KOs or stuff like that might get some awards too. But at the moment, Tony is designing a trophy for the winner of the league that they were going to get after championships, whoever has the most points in the end.
Well, that's really awesome. I mean, most people play these things just for the fun of it, but it's kind of cool to have some kind of prize to look forward to in the end and shoot for. I know that you have a kind of a Discord channel with people that can talk about this. Are people already starting to get that competitive spirit with the first event kind of fast approaching?
Yeah, we've had some people talk about like going and trying to figure out their picks. I've put up some Excel docs, well, I guess Google Sheet docs that show like the bots that are currently there for the 12s and 30s, how many times each of the 12s or 30s can be picked. So we have some stuff going on and taking a look at that. like I said, we're going to have our first draft on the 19th, and then we'll figure out where everyone sits as far as what bots they have going into February. And then when February happens, we'll try and keep track of the points, but afterwards we'll tally up all the points and see who has the most. And then how the drafts are going to work for the rest of the year is the 3-pound draft is going to happen first, and it's a snake format. So whoever's in last place picks first next event, and then it goes from last place to first place, and then the snake turns around and goes to the second pick is whoever picked last picks first. And then for the hobby weights and featherweights, they are combined. So whoever is in last place picks the first hobby weight, and then it goes from last to first, and then whoever's the last pick, a heavyweight, picks their first featherweight. So that's kind of the snake format allows for a little bit more fairness when, especially the later competitions, because the first draft is going to be more random as far as who goes in what order, but it's going to be a little bit more fair, allowing the last place person to try and have their first pick and figure out what they need to get more points.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the way it works a lot of times, because, nobody wants to have like less desirable choices on their roster. So not that, honestly, with how deep the field is these days, I don't know, you'd have to get pretty far down to have somebody that's not going to get you points. So
right.
Yeah, no, that's super exciting. I mean, have you thought about, like, in the future, like, let's say BattleBots comes back, is this something that you've considered expanding to other things outside of NHRL if the opportunity arises?
So an interesting thing with that, was it the last season that BattleBots ran? I think it was the last 2 seasons. So one of the things that this comes out of is during the last 2 seasons that BattleBots ran, we actually ran a family BattleBots tournament where I would have a Google Sheet before each of the events ran, or before each of the episodes ran, I guess. And it would have the matchups, and it would have who's going to win the matchup. Are they going to win it by knockout? And I think there was like 2, maybe just those 2 questions per matchup.
Yeah.
And then the points would be tallied up, and then the winner at the end of the year was whoever had the most wins, whoever was the most accurate through each of the episodes of BattleBots. And we did that the last 2 seasons that aired at BattleBots through the Hunter family, for the entire family, because we would sit down on Sundays and we would all watch the episode together, and I would sit there on my laptop and do the points as the matches ran. So that's kind of one of the places that this league comes from, is that little competition for BattleBots. So yeah, I mean, if BattleBots came back, maybe put it out into like G Scroll or something like that. Depending, G Scroll is growing more and more every year and more every event. So maybe do it for G Scroll too. But like I said previously, this is a work in progress. I've told everyone in the league, in the Discord, that as we are going, I don't want them to feel like they are stepping on any toes with bringing me anything, any suggestions, any ideas, anything they see is wrong. Like, do not feel like you're stepping on my toes. Please bring it to me. This is a thing that we are all flexible and all working on together to try and make work. So I am open to any kind of suggestions from anyone in the league that they feel something needs to be tweaked. And I'm totally open to working on anything that needs to be worked on throughout the year.
We've also had several of the people involved helping out with like data and stuff like that, like finding good, like being able to tear the data off of True Finals easier and everything like that. There's been lively discussions for how much a forfeit should weigh and everything like that too.
Yeah, so the current because I have it up, the current scoring system, the 5 things that get you points is a knockout, a tap out, a forfeit, a judge's decision win, or a judge's decision loss. And of course, knockouts and tap outs are worth the most, followed by a forfeit, then judge's decision win, and then judge's decision lost. And a judge's decision loss still gets your bot points because it's still a judge's decision. Like, you still went the full 3 minutes. So that was kind of the discussion there. And forfeits still get you points. That's been kind of a discussion on how many points should be there. But a forfeit gets you points And it's kind of hard from a builder perspective thinking about a forfeit. But if you think about it from a competitor in the league who has a bot, you still want your bot to get points even if their opponent forfeits, because that's not your fault that the opponent forfeited. So that's why the points are there. It's slightly less than a knockout or a tap out, but there's still points awarded there because we didn't want to punish a player, a member, whatever. We didn't want to punish someone if their bot's opponent forfeited. We still wanted them to get points because that still technically counts as a win on the day. So
Yeah,
I would like to propose the name for team owners as sponsors, maybe, or team owners. I like it.
yeah. Oh, and then there's also, if your bot gets into the final bracket, there's 2 points for that. So you get an additional 2 points if your bot gets into the bracket. And then third or fourth place is worth 5 points at the end of the event. Second place is worth 10, and first place is worth 15. So you get a nice bonus there if your bot places, which is always, I mean, that makes sense. So
yeah, it makes total sense. Now, if anybody wants to follow what's going on with the league and follow around, where's the best way for them to kind of get those updates and see how people are doing?
oh, definitely in the Discord. Everything's going to be posted in the Discord. When we do drafts, when a bot is picked, one of the things that I've been trying to figure out, of course, now that we have 25 members to the league, and I did not think it was going to get that big, but trying to schedule a call with 25 people is difficult. So one of the ways that we have figured that out is I put up a whole poll and sheet to figure out the best time and date for everyone to do the call. So we have the majority of people on the call. Whoever's not on the call, I have a chat channel on our Discord, and I'm going to be posting whenever somebody picks a bot. I'm going to say, like, this person picked this bot, and then it's this person's turn next. And if you're not on the call and you're able to be on the Discord, then you can put your draft pick in when it's your turn. So you can just text your pick instead if you're not on the call. That's totally fine. And then if for some reason you can't be on the Discord either, if you're at work or something like that, or if you're on call or if you're busy, the other thing is, if you know you're going to be busy and you can't be on the call or in the Discord, the other option is to put your top 10 picks in order of the ones that you want the most to the least. And then when we get to your turn, if you can't give us a text with your draft pick, then we'll just take your top most bot and just add it to your pool. So those are the two backup of a backup plan in case someone's not on a call during a draft. So those are other things that we had to figure out. But yeah, so we have a fantasy league channel on the Discord. We have a draft pick channel where during a draft, we're going to put all the draft picks in. All the updates for the fantasy league are going to be on the Discord and the fantasy league channel. So if you want to follow the league, if you want to find out about the league, and you just want, have a good time, because we play Pokemon on our Discord. So if you want to come play Pokemon, we play Pokemon on our Discord too. So if you want to join the Discord, we have a link tree, and it's just Linktree. It's like link.trre or whatever / Havoc Rundown, and that has all of our links. Has the Discord invite in there too. So come join us.
Yep. And I'll put the link in the description. So for anybody that wants to do that, then it's a really easy way to access it for everyone. Well, I think this is a really cool idea. Like, I'm glad that y'all started it, even though I didn't join it. But I mean, realistically, I didn't want to, because I can't pick robots, because that would be like asking me to pick between my children. So it would be too hard for me to draft one robot over another. But yeah, so definitely follow that, check that out. Check out the Havoc Rundown. It's an awesome podcast. I mean, we all have our own things, and I think one show is unique compared to another. So definitely, check that out. I think it's really great, and they have a lot of amazing guests. So aside from that, if you are watching this, please make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow, all of those good things. Keep supporting Combat Robotics. Watch NHRL on February 1st. And we'll see you next time on the show.